People are scared about this. They are scared because they rely on these payments. They have changed their lives. They've been able to access support that they otherwise would not have been able to access. It's very clear that the changes that are being announced are not being created by disabled people, with disabled people at the heart of the decision-making process.
PIP assessment providers confirm that worsening delays for NHS treatment are a big factor in the increase in the number of people applying for PIP.
Isn't this Green Paper actually a huge admission of the Tory failure on the NHS, in that it takes as its starting point the fact that people today simply cannot get the treatment and the care they need?
In the spring of 2019, before I was elected, I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. I was extremely ill with it, and I couldn't work for several months. So I know firsthand how debilitating it can be. But I also know that with treatment and support, you can lead a fulfilling career and a normal life.
He will be aware of the very high levels of unemployment experienced by those with learning disabilities and autism, and bearing in mind that able-bodied people over 50 struggle to find work, let alone those with a disability or long-term health condition. What does he propose doing to actually change the attitude of employers here, to recognise that everybody has a skill, everybody has a role to play, and everyone is an asset?
Disabled people have told SENS that they are sick with worry that they might lose their personal independence payments, which provide a vital lifeline for them. Does the Secretary of State not think disabled people need more support, given the Tory cost of living crisis we have been in for multiple years, and not then just rhetoric that costs them as an undeserving?
If we're looking at a system that is going to more target support, what assurances can the Secretary of State give us that actually this is going to be a better system with less errors in it?
I certainly have many experiences of constituents waiting months, if not years, for assessments for neurodivergent conditions and for mental health support. And clearly we cannot deal with the issues that he wants to in this consultation if we do not fix the NHS workforce crisis in the first place.
Depression and anxiety are real, aren't they? It's not just a question of people pulling up their socks, as some people have suggested in the crueler parts of the commentariat. All too often, talking therapies are least available in the areas with the highest levels of economic inactivity. So how are we going to change that?
Throughout his statement, he mentions tailored support an awful lot. My experience is that when people have, with disabilities, have engagement with the system and have to go through the process where they're making applications, being assessed and so on, that is a cause of great anxiety, and often the decisions are wrong. So if he's proposing more tailored support, more engagement with bureaucracy, particularly for people with fluctuating conditions like ME, how is he going to get it right? Because he's not managed to get it right so far.
There are 2.6 million people who will have heard the statement today, and their families will be absolutely terrified. I think a lot of those people will feel that this is just about providing some kind of cuts to services, and I believe that we need to try and support those people and put compassion at the heart of our welfare system.
What is compassionate about the language used by the Prime Minister over the last fortnight, where he's referred to a sick note culture? He's implied that people forced to rely upon benefits do so as a lifestyle choice. Today he's talking about the arrests, seizures and crackdowns against benefit claimants. The Disability Poverty Group, which comprises all the major charities we've all worked with, said that they described the speech as chilling, threatening and stigmatising.
3 years ago, I had to take a leave of absence from this role because I have PTSD. And I can tell you that the insinuation that mental health conditions are not debilitating, that they don't affect your ability to go about your daily life or to go to work, that they don't incur additional costs, could not be further from the truth.
How can a random DWP assessor faced with a complete stranger on the briefest of interactions be relied upon to produce a more accurate and objective assessment of a patient's condition than her own general practitioner?
The Secretary must understand that the rhetoric coming from government over the last few weeks has been brutal, it's been divisive, and it's been inducing unimaginable terror in the 2/3 of people already in destitution who have a chronic health condition or disability, and the prospect of further cuts is making this situation worse.
Language matters, as we have heard, and the language and the rhetoric, perhaps not from the Secretary of State himself, but from others, has been one of minimising the impact of mental health conditions, which are real and which are serious.
Why isn't the government really focusing on making sure everyone has the support they need to get back into work, rather than falling back into the kind of political posturing that will only add to the stress and anxiety that thousands are already feeling?
Announcing that disabled people suffering from certain conditions would no longer receive support payments, but they will instead get improved access to treatment, is frankly one of the most absurd policies that has ever come out of this government in the last 14 years. Even basic access to treatment doesn't exist, let alone this improved access that the Minister is relying on in this fantasy world he lives in.
The country today is sicker, and that is the legacy of this government. NHS waiting lists are longer than they've ever been, and that is the Secretary of State's party's legacy. And if he doesn't know how bad things are in mental health care, he only needs to ask the member for Central Suffolk and North Ipswich. 2.8 million people are locked out of work due to long-term sickness, and that's this Conservative legacy. Like ice on our potholed roads, the Tories have widened the cracks in our economy and society, making them all much worse.